Hey everyone, it's time for another edition of Beaver Banter.
Beaver Sports Talk lives here.
It is the Beaver Banter podcast presented by Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. I'm CJ Baumgartner. There's Ian Rivers. Ian, always a great week to be a Beaver. And we've kind of now gotten to the late March portion of our broadcast season for the Beaver Banter podcast, where we look around and we're like, okay, well, the hockey's done and the spring sports are going. And man, it kind of just leaves us in an interesting position because now all of a sudden we got to try and pick up the spring sports in the middle of their seasons and things like that. This is always a very fascinating time for our Beaver Banter podcast calendar. And by the way, we did have an interview with Bemidji State assistant baseball coach Davis Schaefer last week. It was a great conversation. Go back and listen to that. He talked about his coaching roots, what they are trying to do at Bemidji State and building up the baseball program, and just a lot of fascinating topics and conversations that's worth a listen. So go back to last week's episode and go consume that and then come back here and listen to this one. But Ian, just a weird time on the broadcast calendar for us.
Yeah, it always gets to spring and things start to slow down and you're not adding sports anymore. Like normally it gets chaotic, like towards the middle of, late fall, where all of a sudden the winter sports are encroaching in upon the fall sports. And it's like, oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. And then the same thing happens, in February when the spring sports start up. And we're like, oh my gosh, we still got hockey and basketball, all this to cover. But right now there's none of that. We just got the on the diamond action. We've got some tennis, of course, the golf teams and a little bit of track and field here and there. But some of that's hard to cover, man. They don't make everything super accessible. Baseball games, softball games played in the middle of the day. It makes it harder to watch. Track and field, obviously very hard to try to stream any of that. Golf, I don't even know if they have any sort of way to watch that.
We live and die by the live stats.
Exactly. It's tough out here, but sports are still in action, so we'll still be here covering it.
Exactly. And a lot of fun stuff going on at Bemidji State. Again, we talked a little baseball last week with assistant coach Schaefer. Let's talk a little more baseball this week. Unfortunately, the Beavers couldn't quite pick up a win over the weekend. They get swept in a 3-game series down at Wayne State. They play a doubleheader on Saturday where they lose the first game 11-5. And how about this one? I know Coach Schaefer talked about it being an offensive league, but certainly was the case in that double dip of the Saturday games. 26-15 is where that stands. Wayne State got the victory there, and then a 19-7 victory for Wayne State on Sunday as well. And, when you get to the second game of a doubleheader, when you get to the third game of a series, you can run out of pitching and you can run out of arms, and that's kind of what happened for Bemidji State in that situation. They're running out of the pitchers to be able to throw down, and a good week for the offense, but can't quite score enough to keep up with Wayne State over the weekend. The Beavers now have that L streak piling up here. Their last win came back against Northern State on March 8th. So since that point, the Beavers right now on a 10-game losing streak, trying to turn that around. They're going to have an opportunity to do that later in the week. So for those of you listening as of this recording, they're going to play a couple games against Southwest Minnesota State on Tuesday that will have already been played, and you'll know the results of that. And hopefully they snap that losing streak by the time they get back to there. Then, of course, over the weekend, they will have, over the Easter weekend, a doubleheader against Minnesota State at the BSU baseball field. It's going to be a cold one, Ian, very, very cold. I hope that the Bats will be able to be okay through the weekend. And then Saturday at noon, they will finish up that series against Minnesota State. So that's what the schedule's looking like for the upcoming week for Bemidji State baseball. And hey, let's snap that winning streak. Let's pile some up. Going to be some tough opponents to do that with Minnesota State coming to town this weekend. So go get those wins down in Marshall when you can. Ian, anything to add?
For what it's worth, Southwest Minnesota State, just 4 conference wins so far. Of course, Bemidji State sitting down just below them at 2. Minnesota State currently sitting 11-1 in conference play. A little bit of a tougher opponent there, but yeah, maybe an opportunity this midweek to pick up a couple of extra wins and try to get the momentum back on your side like it was 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Just trying to get something kind of rolling again, trying to get something going. The Beavers did try to rally back in that 7th inning in that final game against Wayne State. They did score 5 of their 7 runs in the 7th inning. And for Bemidji State, just to kind of give some highlights here, we have Hayden, who homered to center field in the 1st inning and was able to get a big score for the Beavers. You also had Feldman, who doubled to right field. Toma, who I know that Coach Schaefer has talked about last week, ends up doubling to center field, scoring a couple runs. So a lot, there's a few names that we talked about with Coach Schaefer that made some plays over the weekend. So go back and listen to that interview with Coach Schaefer. Go check out those box scores and kind of see that crossover there. Ian, let's talk a little Bemidji State softball, and they're a team too that's just trying to find their rhythm. They're struggling to get into a groove here. They have not won. Their last victory came back on March 10th against Golden Beacon College back in Florida. Since then, they lost 3 games in Florida and then have lost, I believe, something along the lines of 8 conference games in that stretch and have lost 11 in a row. And Ian, for the Beavers, it's just been tough on the offensive end. They lost 10-2 on March 28th against Southwest Minnesota State. They then lost 8-1 on the second game of that doubleheader, and they didn't score runs in their doubleheader at all against USF. They got shut out in the doubleheader against Wayne State, and they only scored 6 runs in a doubleheader combined against Augustana. So it's just felt like, and we mentioned this a couple weeks ago too, it's just felt like for the softball team, they've just had a tough time getting that offensive momentum going over the course of the year. And, I know people can look at softball and baseball, and because they look identical, you think that they're the exact same sports, but they're not. They are sports that are similar, but they are not alike. The strategy, the way you want to attack the ball, the way you want to play defensively, the way you want to play offensively, a lot of that is different in softball, and it just lends itself to being more of an offensive sport. I mean, the bat's longer, the ball is bigger, the bases are shorter, the field isn't as big. It lends itself opportunities to offense, and for the Beavers, they're just not able to take advantage of those right now. And so for Bemidji State, trying to figure out how they can get that going again is going to be key for the Beavers here. They have a stretch coming up where they play this weekend against Minot State, a doubleheader at the BSU softball field on Friday, and then on Saturday, a doubleheader against Mary. So they take on Minot on Friday for another Beaver battle, and then they have Mary on Saturday, and then they'll play a couple games the next Tuesday at UMD to kind of keep this portion of the schedule going. But Ian, just going to try and look to score some runs here if you're Bemidji State softball.
Yeah, it's a decent opportunity to do so as well. You look at the positioning of all 3 of these teams in the standings, all 3 pretty low. Minot State just 2-6 in conference play. However, they are just a hair over 500 overall. Then you look at UMary and Bemidji State, both currently sitting winless at 0-8 in conference play. The Beavers are second lowest in the conference in total runs this season with just 89. The only team below them is MSU Moorhead with 76. Northern State just above them with 92. And then Crookston in 13th all the way up at 131. So pretty big gap between the Beavers and kind of even – that 75th percentile of the rest of the NSIC. So hopefully the Bats can pick up here soon. They're going to need it if they want to try to climb any position back into the NSIC race here to maybe make a postseason berth. But we'll see if it starts this weekend.
Yeah. Before we get into some more sports, Ian, let's first talk about our great sponsors, Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation. Once a Beaver, always a Beaver. The Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation is here to keep that green and white pride going strong for its 50,000 graduates around the world. From scholarships that open doors for students to events that bring BSU alumni and friends together, you can get connected, give back, and leave a legacy at Bemidji State. Whether you're a proud BSU grad, a local supporter, or just love cheering on the Beavers, come be a part of the action at bsualumni.org. That's bsualumni.org. Bemidji State Alumni and Foundation, proud supporters of the Beaver Banter podcast. Okay, Ian. So as we take a look here at some more of the spring sports for Bemidji State, let's talk a little track and field. Again, as we talk about the indoor portion of the schedule, they're not quite there yet, but they are getting to their first event of the 2026 outdoor schedule. They're going to be in Decorah, Iowa on Friday for the Norse Invite. Things get going there at 11 o'clock, and then they're off for the week. They'll go to Minnesota State on the 11th. Then they got a couple meets out in California at Los Angeles and Azusa, and then finish as well in Aberdeen that weekend. So they're sending, kind of three different portions of the team to all three of those meets that fall in the same weekend. And then they'll be in Simpson, Iowa for the Kip Jarvin Open. And then they have the Drake Relays, the Grandview Viking Classic, the Cobber Open at the beginning of May. And then they will get going May 7th, 8th, and 9th for the NSIC Championship. So a long way to go still for the Beavers in their season. They're just getting it started here with the Norse Invite on Friday. And hey, they've had a nice indoor season. They were able to set some records, keep some paces going. Now as you move into that outdoor portion, let's see what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Have to imagine that outdoor track is a little bit better than indoor track, just in general. Yeah. I mean,
depending on the wind and certain weather conditions.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if you're out on that in Southern California meet, I'm sure you're going to be probably pretty happy, but
you're going to be a lot warmer than you will be at this meet in Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess it's all dependent on the day and of course the weather, but yeah, best of luck to all those athletes competing there. If we've got nothing else for track, CJ, we can move on to women's tennis.
Yeah, they had a big series over the weekend. How'd things go?
Yeah, unfortunately, they were swept over the weekend. A close loss on Saturday to Winona State, 3-4 in 7 sets. Of course, they play 7 regardless, so it's not necessarily like a best of 7.
Not like volleyball, yeah.
No. And then on Sunday, they turned around and played against Minnesota State and lost 1-6. So unfortunately for them, weren't able to kind of keep pace with that playoff field. But they're still right there. It's still all out in the open for them. If you look at the standings page, Bemidji State currently sitting in the 7th spot, just 1 game behind Jamestown and a game and a half, I guess, technically behind Winona State. They still haven't made up that game against Minnesota State from earlier in the season that I assume they're still going to be playing. Maybe not. Could be that it was just canceled and they're going to have 1 less game that they can make up. And this is the confusing thing because there's no, we made the mistake in basketball season. Jamestown wasn't involved in the postseason play. There's nothing on the tennis website here that suggests that they're not eligible for tournament play. But considering that the basketball teams weren't, I'm a little confused on whether or not that they're going to be in it or not. If they're not, that means Bemidji State currently holds the last playoff spot. If they are, that means Bemidji State will have to beat them to leapfrog up and over them in a couple of weeks when the teams match up again. They have an off weekend here, and then Saturday the 11th at 1 p.m. in Bismarck, North Dakota, they'll take on Mary. Sunday at 12:30, they'll take on Jamestown. That's again in Bismarck. We'll touch a little bit more on those next week, I'm sure. But big matches coming up. If you go 2-0, you're in regardless. Doesn't matter what anybody else does. I have to imagine the head-to-head tiebreaker would go to you over Jamestown in a 1-1 scenario. So, yeah, something to keep an eye on for next week. Maybe I'll try to do some digging this week and find out whether Jamestown is actually eligible or not. But from what I can see, there's nothing on here that says that they're ineligible. So we're going to treat it as if they're eligible. And if we get other, if we sneak in as the 6 because they're not, then, hey, more power to us.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Yep.
Yeah. So a very fascinating weekend ahead for next week, I should say, for Bemidji State women's tennis. Of course, having the Easter weekend off, I'm sure probably that natural break in the schedule there. To take a look at their box score against Minnesota State. Again, you look at the doubles matchup. You have Mia Lesham, and Marla Davies end up losing their match 6-2 in the number 1 doubles. In the number 2 doubles, you have Bemidji State falling with Paula Garcia Acebal, and Lauren Rutten with a 6-3 loss in number 2 doubles. And then number 3 doubles, Bemidji State does get the win there with Valeska Rodriguez and Ana Lucia and Isabano Castro kind of thrown in the mix there. For singles for this one, Bemidji State not quite able to win the number 1 singles as Mia Lesham falls in that one. Number 2 singles, Bemidji State falls in that other one as well with Paula Garcia Acebal. And then in number 3 singles, Marla Davies able to get the victory there. And then number 4 singles, you have Valeska Rodriguez falling just short to Alma Vasquez. And then also in the number 5 singles, Lauren Rutten falling to Tania Corderio. And then also in the number 6 singles, Ana Lucia Ibanez Castro falling just short there as well. So obviously a good program there in MSU, and tough to come back from some of those ones with a really deep team as well. And we'll see what happens here on the other end. So for Bemidji State. So that's where things look. And again, they have a couple big series coming up in North Dakota in Bismarck on that 11th and 12th. So Ian, I think that wraps up a lot of our coverage here of the spring sports that are happening. Do you want to wrap up with golf? Because right now they're at the Silverback Invite, which is in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And so that is at Crestwood Country Club. And right now we are in day 1 of the 2-day tournament as of recording of this podcast. And let's just take a look. Again, a lot of this will have changed, but for now, Bemidji State right now is in 5th place with a plus 27 in the competition. They're kind of in the 8th and 9th holes right now. Their round 1 score was plus 18. Round 2 was plus 9. So something to keep an eye on here. Again, the player leaderboard to see where everybody is at individually. The highest ranking Beaver on the list is Ryan Cullen, who right now is plus 6, was plus 7 in round 1, and then a minus 1 in round 2. So there's something to keep an eye on for men's golf. As we take a look now at the men's hockey, let's just kind of catch up on things. Ian, we knew what the bracket was last week. Games are going. We know who the Frozen Four is, and then a week off. Now we're going to talk about the NCAA tournament format for the men's hockey side of things. But first, let's just get a recap on things. What does our Frozen Four look like?
Yeah, the Frozen Four looks kind of like, I don't know, World War II, you know, if you take out the U.S., like there's no allied powers, unfortunately, in the Frozen Four. We're looking at Michigan versus Denver and Wisconsin versus North Dakota. Just about as bad as you can get. I mean, listen, I know there's a lot of people that listen to our show that are in our Discord, which if you're not in the Discord, go ahead and join that. It's super awesome. We've been talking a lot of college hockey over the last couple of weeks, and we did just get a little bit of breaking news, but it's not really news, but it's something that popped up that we'll probably touch on here in the next couple of minutes after we get done with our little rant about the Frozen Four / NCAA tournament. So join the Discord server. It's on all of our social media pages. Super awesome. But yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that aren't semi-Gopher affiliated, but as somebody who grew up rooting for the Gophers before attending Bemidji State and then kind of flipping my allegiance over to the Beavers, yeah, seeing a couple of Big Ten teams in there, Wisconsin, Michigan, North Dakota, obviously a huge rival of Bemidji State, and Minnesota, like Denver. Denver really, I guess, doesn't offend me as much other than the fact that they're in it all the time. It's boring. They could be winning their 4th national championship in like the last 10 or 11 years if they win it again this year. They stole our best player because of definite tampering. I'm going to call that one, you know, like,
yeah. And my beef with the San Jose Sharks. So, you know, there's
well, that too. Yeah, that definitely had nothing to do with it, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, just in general, one of the least interesting tournaments in a while. I mean, I don't know, like no major upsets. I guess Wisconsin making the Frozen Four in general is kind of an upset, but they beat Dartmouth, who was pretty good. They beat them handily, but at the end of the day, it was Dartmouth who really, I don't know, to me, they hadn't really proven themselves
Right.
over the course of the season. North Dakota, I mean, shuts out Merrimack, shuts out Quinnipiac on their way to, a dominant regional.
I guess the
Denver,
one solace we could take out of this is
insane.
a huge dub for Midwestern hockey.
Yeah, I mean, the western portion of college hockey, if you want to consider it anything, west of Ohio, in a sense, or
Anything east of the Mississippi River or west of the Mississippi River. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess
Michigan,
Wisconsin maybe gets
Michigan, Wisconsin, you can lump them in there too as Big Ten teams, but it is what it is. North Dakota, Denver. I don't know. I don't know how much solace I take in that necessarily. It's just not a very interesting Frozen Four in terms of storylines, to be honest with you. But
yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are happy. Las Vegas is going to be happy, like the region hosting it. Because there's these fan bases that travel pretty well, so there'll be a pretty good environment at the Frozen Four.
Do people like to travel to Vegas?
Yeah, maybe, especially North Dakota fans. I think they do it every year. I don't think that they'll be objective of an extra visit this year.
They actually should be very thankful. I'm pretty sure that's how Ralph Engelstad made all his money. He bought up a bunch of land in the desert and then flipped it all, and that's how he ended up becoming so wealthy. Yes. So yeah, he should be very thankful, I guess.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just in general, I don't know. I think that there was a lot of negative buzz around the tournament just from the jump, like with the decision to send a bunch of teams from the East Coast to Sioux Falls and to make, Minnesota State go to Denver, or Loveland, I should say. I don't know. I think that we're closer than we were before to getting home site regionals. But I don't know. I do think the tournament needs to be overworked a little bit. Like, I don't know if the regionals need to happen. Like, what I would do is I would just make it a 3-week tournament. This 2-week gap in between the first round, the second round, and then the Frozen Four seems unnecessary. I get that they don't want to play at the same time as the Frozen Four, or the Final Four, I should say, which doesn't make sense because they play different days anyways. I'm pretty sure the Final Four is Saturday, Monday, and this is Thursday, Sunday, or something like that. I could be wrong.
Right. And also they run their main tournament games up against the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty wrong with it. Starting the start times of the games, like,
I guess maybe let's take it like all the way back in, like, because we talked about this before the start of the show. You have your thoughts on how you would fix the NCAA tournament. So I guess let's start off. Give me the biggest things that are wrong with the current format, and then give me the things you would change.
I think that, college hockey wanted to grow the game, and they took moving to neutral site regionals as a step in the right direction for the growth of the game, because now they're big enough to be able to command other buildings, neutral sites for their NCAA tournament. But I think at this point, it's hurting the aura, if you want to say, of the brand of college hockey when you want to market all these really good atmospheres, and that's kind of your main calling point for what makes college hockey so great. I would get rid of having 4 1 seeds. There's no point to having a bunch of different 4 seeds. Like, there's no difference between a 3 and a 4 to me. Like, all this, go straight 1 through 16. Doesn't matter. Like, I get it. It's a mathematical formula. It can be a little bit nitpicky to send one team somewhere. Just do it 1 through 16. If that's how you're going to pick the field anyways, then that's fine. 1 through 16, auto bids for the conference tournament winners. But home sites for all 8 of the first round games for the top 8 in the NPI. Do that best of 3 series on the first weekend. And then the winners of that, you'll move forward in the bracket, and you'll do the same thing the next weekend. And it'll be best of 3. It doesn't have to be best of 3, but I think it would be more exciting if it's best of 3 to decide who goes to the Frozen Four.
It's a lot more fair if it's best of 3. You take out the one game flukiness of college hockey.
Right. And not that there isn't that now, but,
right.
And maybe if you just give it that in the first round. Like, I think you would. The problem with that is the 16 over the 1 upset has happened a decent amount of times before, and I think but nobody's arguing that there's a perfect way to do this. There's obviously give and take with every different scenario. I would just like to see it move to campus sites and have more excitement, and then the Frozen Four, obviously, the weekend following those first 2 weekends. I don't see a need for a gap in 2 weeks in between the college hockey tournament. Like, there's no point to make it a 3-week tournament if you're going to have nothing happen in the second weekend, other than maybe some award announcements and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I would do. Just spread it out a little bit more so that it's not, then you can get rid of the like noon start time on Thursday. Like, I just don't see the point in, if you're going to keep it like this, stop starting games in the middle of the day. Nobody, like, if you're going to put the games on ESPN Plus anyways, some of them, then why can't they be played at the same time?
Right.
Because you're already putting them behind a paywall for certain fan bases that want to watch these other games. Then just start them later in the day. You can have a little bit more overlap. Like, we don't need to start games at noon so that they can all get their time to shine. Like, I don't know. It seems silly the way that it works now, and I would just like to see it tweaked somehow. I would like to feel like somebody cares to try to improve the game and continue it to grow. It doesn't feel like that all the time. That it definitely has taken a back seat, especially since NIL has started. A lot of that money gets pumped into football and basketball, and it's a shame to see hockey kind of not necessarily falling behind, but it's not growing the way we want it to. It's not as popular as we want it to, and of course there's demographic drawbacks, and a lot of Southern schools and Western schools don't even have hockey to care about. So it just kind of puts it in, you talked about it a couple of weeks ago when we had our Twins discussion. It's a niche sport in a way. But either way, like, there shouldn't be, I think there was a game this weekend that got delayed because there was a regular season college baseball game that went into extra innings. And so
ESPN didn't want to overlap them.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I don't know. The NCAA tournament for hockey feels a little bit more important than a regular season college baseball game. And I would say the same thing about like a regular season basketball game. NCAA tournament should take a little bit of priority, but it doesn't feel like it's priority. Whether it's ESPN, whether it's the NCAA.
They'll stash it on ESPN2 and never promote it, and you're going to like it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it feels like
they do need to move. It feels like they need to move networks. Like, college hockey needs to move from ESPN. The problem is there's nowhere really to go because, like, you have to have somebody who wants to take you. Would Fox Sports take you? Maybe. Would NBC take you? Maybe. They've had hockey connections before. They just got the NBC Sports Network back. So not that it needs to be on the main NBC network, but could it be on the Sports Network? Could it even be on CBS Sports Network or something like that? It's not that it has to be on like something channel, like a specific channel or a specific network even. It just has to be in a spot where the TV provider that has it is going to care about it. And ESPN, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. ESPN has dove into, because they have the rights to, the NCAA women's basketball tournament. And because of the popularity growing in that, they've jumped all in on that, as they should, of course. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but what I'm saying is that does leave college hockey in the dust. And so you have a network that has you because they feel like they should, but they don't really know what to do with you. Whereas it feels like they do need to find some kind of TV network that is going to embrace them with open arms and want to fully market it. How many advertisements, how many promos have you seen for college hockey on ESPN? The answer is 0.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily have the perfect answer to the puzzle, but I want to see something change because it just feels stagnant at this point. It just feels pretty uninteresting. But I get that there are other hurdles you have to do. If you're doing 8 different games the first weekend of the NCAA tournament, that's 8 broadcasts that you have to put on now instead of just 4, per day. Like it's difficult. Trust me. I get that. There's other hoops you got to jump through, but I would like to see some sort of change be made. Just make it a little bit better somehow. I don't know.
I think you're correct though. I think the easiest fix is just bringing back home sites.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Even if it's just for the women's basketball tournament, you are a certain seed. Okay, well now you're hosting a region.
Yes.
Like if you're the number 1 overall seed in the tournament, if you're
that's better than nothing.
Right,
And
exactly.
people always say, well, what if, North Dakota's the host and then all of a sudden they get upset in the first round? And it's like,
they're already
risk you gotta
here. So, right. Like they're already here. Everybody already booked their flights. Like what? It's like, what do we, I think it's fine. I think that portion is overblown because they do that with a bunch of tournaments anyways. And nobody seems to really care that much. And if you're the universities, you actually like it because you're not making the ticket money, but you will make concession money. And you will make something. You'll make parking money. You'll make some of that other stuff. Your local hotels get a boost. I'm sure that there's some logistical stuff I'm not thinking of, but I do think having some form of, whatever form it looks like, giving people home ice advantage in those situations, I think is a very simple and easy fix to do to bring some juice back into those early tournament games. So I don't know. I mean, could you imagine like some of these host sites, like, I know that they didn't make the tournament this year, but like the Gophers getting to host a tournament game and then having in the same side, like Bemidji State or St. Cloud State or Minnesota State or somebody who it's like, oh, cool. Like it's just in the Twin Cities. I'll make that drive over. Like, so exactly. And then you get to see a whole bunch of other college hockey going on the same site. So I don't know. That feels like in some fashion of that feels like an easy fix. So, Ian, as we wrap up, anything else kind of on our college hockey-ish discussions? Otherwise, we'll kind of we'll take one more break and then we'll do some news and notes to wrap up the show.
Yeah, I think we can take a quick break here to thank our sponsors once again. Do you want to be a part of the team behind the teams at Bemidji State? Join hundreds of dedicated fans when you donate to Beaver Athletics and help BSU pursue its next championship. Your gift can power your favorite program, establish a scholarship for a student athlete you get to meet, and so much more. Every dollar brings the Beavers closer to raising another trophy. You can add to the proud tradition of success at Bemidji State. So don't wait. Give today at bsualumni.org/Beavers. That's BSUALUMNI.org/BEAVERS.
Okay, so let's just kind of tie up some loose odds and ends here as we wrap up the podcast. Any transfer portal information for Bemidji State? Any other Bemidji State hockey news and notes we need to keep in mind here? Because again, to remind everybody, the transfer portal window does not open until after the national championship.
Yeah, nothing on either side for the transfer portal. I have not heard of any other women's players that have jumped in, any women's players that have committed to Bemidji State. Nothing on the men's side, of course, yet. Vince Corcoran, that's kind of the big news for the men's team, signed with the Worcester Railers of the ECHL. So he got a pro contract that makes 3 ECHL deals for the Beavers this season, which is pretty good. It's probably about average, I think, 3 or 2 to 4 usually per year, I would say. And then we did get some news, a little bit of news. It's more of a lead on some potential news.
It's more of a comment, really.
Yeah. From the the Beaver Banter Discord, not directly affiliated with Bemidji State University. We got some news that it looks like Connor McLennan is fighting for another year of eligibility per his Instagram comment section.
Interesting.
Lucas of Beaver Territory then confirmed with per source, he only played 3 semesters of college hockey in Canada, so technically could possibly have 1 more year of eligibility left if the NCAA wants to give it to him. And it seems like he's fighting for that. So Connor was, of course, a senior, somebody we did not expect to get back, but I think he would be a welcome get back for the Beavers if he was able to get that extra year of eligibility. I
was going to say, how does this impact Bemidji State? And I know you're about to say something, so quickly go through that, and then just kind of how does that impact if Bemidji State could get him back? How does that impact next year's outlook?
Well, I think it helps. He's got another year of college hockey to kind of adjust to the style of play, and he already had 18 points this year. He's top 5 on the team in points scored. And of course, hard to keep up with that top line of Pierre Magnuson and Flamang. So when you consider that, he was a top scoring forward, not named those 3 or Riley Funk. he was pretty good last year, and a lot of those points came earlier in the season. Of course, he had the 4-goal game against Northern Michigan. So it's a little bit skewed, I suppose, but 11 goals, 7 assists. Definitely somebody I'd be fine with getting back, especially considering Fleming won't be back, Funk won't be back, Magnuson should be back, Pierre should be back. All things, I would expect that if Pierre was going to sign, it would have happened by now. So you kind of expect that, maybe you lose him in the transfer portal. Maybe he comes back for his senior year with Bemidji State. So that will all still have to be decided down the road. But Connor would be, I think, a welcome, addition to the forward group next year. It just gives you a little bit more stability. This year, I think we had a lot of new pieces in, new faces, and the offense wasn't really necessarily the problem all the time, but the gelling did start to kind of fall apart, which is weird. It felt like the offense was better in the beginning of the year, and you would feel like maybe as the year goes on, it would have gelled and meshed better with all those new CHL players coming in. But
maybe teams, once they finally got film, were just be able to like, okay, here's how we counteract. And then, like you said, they just hadn't had enough time as a team together to be able to kind of navigate that. So yeah, a second opportunity would be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's it. That's all I've got on hockey, on any other sort of news that I've heard. Still no word on a new women's basketball coach, as far as I'm aware. So we'll keep you posted if we hear anything on that. Otherwise, join the Beaver Banter Discord. Follow us on social media. Keep listening to the show.
Per sources, Ian Rivers, front runner for the job. Source, I made it up.
I don't know.
Locks in on day one. So let's score points and let's prevent the other team from doing that.
Put the ball in the net, make the net go swoosh.
Make the net go swoosh. We could print the shirts.
Yes, sir.
Especially works out now that they're a Nike affiliate. So
yep.
That's what we call corporate synergy right there.
Mm-hmm. That's thinking of the shareholders.
We are thinking of the shareholders, the most important people in this conversation.
Yes.
As we wrap things up, Ian, anything Beaver related, any stuff you want to get out there as we ready to roll into another week of Bemidji State? It's crazy that the next time that we crack this mic open, it's going to be a full week of April. Yeah,
it's flying by. Still got at least a month left of Beaver Banter for the season, so we'll keep coming at you with all things Bemidji State. But
exactly. And once the hockey portal opens, we'll be following in depth. We'll be keeping an eye on stuff. But until then, it's the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm CJ Baumgartner. That's Ian Rivers, and we'll see you next time.